As Formula One drivers gear up for the upcoming season, they are facing some significant changes to the rules that govern racing. Max Verstappen, along with other drivers, has already made it clear these changes are far from perfect. In fact, they may only stir up more challenges on the track. Last season, Lando Norris took on Verstappen not just in the standings, but also in questioning Formula One's racing regulations. This led to stricter penalties and tighter rules. Their heated rivalry spanned races in Austria, Austin, and Mexico, sparking plenty of debate among fans and experts alike. Despite the stewards assigning blame and imposing penalties in each case, the controversies continued. In Austria, Verstappen faced a 10-second penalty after forcing Norris off the track during an attempted overtake. In Austin, Norris was given a 5-second penalty for leaving the track while overtaking Verstappen, though the stewards agreed this was a result of the close proximity of the two cars. Verstappen, meanwhile, was penalized 10 seconds for a similar incident in Mexico, further intensifying the debate around on-track behavior and penalties. The back and forth between drivers and stewards hasn't been easy for anyone. Verstappen has expressed concerns that these rule changes are a bit too much. He feels that racing isn't always black and white. What might seem like an obvious penalty in one situation could look different in another. He's pointed out that the balance between too many or too few regulations often leads to confusion. Sometimes, fewer rules might create a chaotic race, but on the flip side, too many rules can strip away the excitement and creativity of racing. It's clear that Formula One is walking a fine line here. While Verstappen thinks things might never be perfect, other drivers like George Russell have acknowledged the need for consistency. Russell believes that the updated wheel-to-wheel combat rules, which now require inside drivers to give more space, should be carefully enforced. But, he also mentioned, that there likely won't be significant changes to the rules about overtaking on the outside. His point is that while the rules have been updated, it's important not to go overboard, as some of the previous rules already worked fine. Oscar Piastri, another rising star, has weighed in on the matter, stressing the importance of consistency from the stewards. While he acknowledges that some tweaks are still necessary, he appreciates the efforts of the FIA to provide a clearer set of guidelines for how penalties and decisions are made. In the past, there was often confusion about what was acceptable and what wasn't. But now, at least there's something to reference. Piastri admits that no set of rules will ever be perfect, especially in a sport as dynamic as Formula One, where every situation is unique. However, he believes that the direction Formula One is heading in, with more consistent enforcement, is a positive step. He also pointed out that these guidelines are relatively new, meaning there's still room for refinement. With time, these rules could evolve, and the FIA has shown a willingness to collaborate with the drivers to get things right. While some may like the changes and others may not, the real test will come after a few races, when the effects of these adjustments become clearer. The ongoing conversation between the FIA and the drivers will be crucial in shaping the future of racing regulations in Formula One. But the changes aren't just on the track. Off-track regulations are also undergoing significant shifts. As Formula One teams start designing their cars for the 2026 season, the removal of restrictions on next-generation car designs has added a layer of complexity. This means teams now have to decide how to allocate their resources between developing the 2025 cars and preparing for 2026. It's a delicate balancing act. Some teams might choose to focus more on the immediate future, targeting short-term success in 2025. On the other hand, others may decide that getting a head start on 2026 is the better move, even if it means sacrificing some performance in the next season. This decision will depend heavily on the team's position in the standings and their confidence in catching up with their competitors. The flexibility to adjust and reallocate resources will be crucial as the season progresses. Ideally, teams will want to perfect their car specifications early in 2025, allowing them to shift focus to 2026 later. But for teams that struggle at the start of the year, the temptation will be to keep pushing the current car's development in the hope of staying competitive in the standings. For many teams, the key to success in 2025 will be the ability to adapt quickly. Christian Horner, team principal at Red Bull, recently discussed how unpredictable the situation can be. Teams fighting for a top spot in the Constructors' Championship often find themselves extending their development throughout the season, which can be particularly challenging. This was evident in the 2021 to 2022 transition, where significant changes in car specifications were made mid-season. Horner emphasized that the earlier you start preparing for future regulations, the better the chance of gaining an advantage. However, in the middle of a close championship battle, deciding where to invest resources becomes much more complicated. Red Bull's performance in 2024 was a mix of highs and lows. While they secured Verstappen's fourth consecutive World Championship, they found themselves trailing McLaren and Ferrari in the constructors' standings. Despite finishing third, Red Bull saw an upside in their situation, especially in terms of aerodynamic testing. Due to Formula One's sliding scale for aerodynamic research, teams in lower positions in the constructors' standings receive more wind tunnel and CFD time. This could give Red Bull a slight edge in preparing for the 2025 season, even if the 2024 season didn't go as expected. The aerodynamic advantage could be crucial for Red Bull as they head into 2025, a year that marks the final season before major regulatory changes take effect in 2026. The sliding scale, which adjusts based on a team's position in the constructors' standings, gives lower-ranking teams an opportunity to catch up by providing them more time in the wind tunnel. For Red Bull, this means they'll have more time to refine their 2025 car compared to McLaren and Ferrari, who will be operating with less testing time. However, this boost also comes with its own set of challenges. The team's strategy for balancing short-term and long-term goals will be put to the test. As Horner pointed out, it's a constant juggling act. With the major regulatory overhaul coming in 2026, Red Bull's engineers and strategists will have to manage their focus carefully. A poor performance in 2024 has put them in a tough spot, but it also presents an opportunity to improve their aerodynamic understanding for the future. The big question is whether this will be enough to keep them competitive, not just in 2025, but as they look to 2026, when the sport will undergo one of its most significant changes in decades. The build-up to 2026 is creating an environment where teams will need to think several years ahead. For Red Bull, having a head start in aerodynamic development could be the edge they need to stay competitive, but the constant balancing act between the present and the future will make things tricky. As Horner noted, the upcoming changes for 2026 are expected to be the biggest in Formula One's history, making the planning process even more critical. With so much at stake, the team will have to stay flexible and be prepared to pivot their strategies as the season unfolds. But while Red Bull is focused on aerodynamic development, the rest of the grid is also facing similar challenges. McLaren, Ferrari, and other top teams will be working hard to stay at the front, while also keeping an eye on the long-term future. The competition is going to be fierce, and it's going to be fascinating to see how teams balance their resources and strategies throughout 2025. For now, all eyes are on how these evolving regulations will affect not only the on-track battles, but also the way teams prepare for the massive shifts that 2026 will bring. With 2026 on the horizon, teams are already making strategic decisions that will shape the future of Formula One. The changes to the regulations are bound to shake up the entire grid, and how teams approach this transition will be crucial to their success in the years to come. For Red Bull, the extra wind tunnel time they're getting could prove to be a game changer, but that doesn't mean they can rest easy. The competition is always evolving, and staying ahead in the world of phone is never a guarantee. As we move closer to 2025, all eyes will be on how teams handle the balance between immediate results and long-term development. The stakes are higher than ever, and the path to success is full of twists and turns. Whether or not Red Bull's aerodynamic advantage will be enough to keep them at the top remains to be seen. One thing is certain: the road to 2026 will be filled with intense battles, tough decisions, and plenty of surprises along the way. The evolution of Formula One is well underway, and it's anyone's guess who will come out on top when the dust settles.